Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and another audio upgrade episode on CAS TV. Now, in the 1990s, what I would class as the heyday of car audio, Alpine Electronics of UK owned a Lamborghini Diablo and they kitted it out with all the latest tech. Well, today we have a Lamborghini Diablo in our workshop and we'll be kitting it out with all the latest tech but with a twist. So yes guys, today's episode is another classic car audio upgrade, but this time it's in this iconic Lamborghini Diablo. Let's get into it. So I've got to say, I do love these classic car upgrades. Now, today we have a 1992 registered Lamborghini Diablo in Superfly yellow. It actually belongs to a friend of mine, Jag, and he's owned this car for about 2 years, I believe. It has an audio upgrade, but that is a little bit tired. I would say it's at least 15 years old, so it's not the stock stereo system that this car would have come with when it left the factory. So let me show you the components that are in this Lambo now, and then we'll talk about some of the new products that are going into this iconic car. So behind the driver's seat, this is a left-hand drive vehicle, we have a 10-inch diamond sub in a custom enclosure, actually a good sized box as well. And behind the passenger seat, we have an Alpine amp, which is in a sort of custom mount. The door cards, now, I think originally these would have come with 5.25-inch speakers, but I think there's 6.5-inch speakers in the door cards, and there are some custom tweeter mounts that the previous installer has fabricated, and they've seen better days. Not the easiest car to get into. So we have a Alpine CD player here, which is probably about 15 years old. Now, in terms of actual audio itself, it doesn't sound very good. There's a lot of interference, there's static whine, there's actually a popping now from the subwoofer while I'm sitting here, even with the volume 0. So there's no point doing a sound listening test before we upgrade the components. I think the amp is a little bit tired as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna call the engineers in, we're gonna strip the door cards, take the seats out, take the amp out, take the subwoofer out, and take the stereo out. Once they've done that and we have an understanding of exactly what's behind these door cards, I will show you all the new audio components that are going into this iconic car. So let me show you the products that have come out of this Diablo. First, let's start with the Alpine amplifier. That is a very big Alpine amplifier, MRV F540. This is from about, it's a stab in the dark, but I think it's a 2000 amplifier from the year 2000. So it's a good 25 years old. Power rating wise, this is 4x80 watts RMS. So it was running as a 3-channel amplifier. The front channels were running these Diamond Audio mids and tweeters. There is a crossover hidden somewhere underneath the dash, which we're going to remove. These are the M361s, RMS power rating 60 watts per channel. They've obviously seen better days because they do look very, very tired. I think these are around from the early to mid 2000s, so good 20 years old there. So these are the Diamond Audio tweeters, which form part of the component kit. They were obviously supplied as a kit together. They look a bit tired as well. The actual housing for the component kit, we're going to have to probably fabricate some new tweeter mounts, some tweeter molds, because these are a different size to the new Alpine tweeters that are going in. The rear channels on the Alpine amp, so that's channels 3 and 4, they were bridged, so bridged mono into one channel, and that channel was running a 10-inch Diamond subwoofer, which is the CM310D2, about 300 watts RMS, nice chunky subwoofer there. And again, I think that's from the early 2000s. And finally, the source unit was this Alpine CD player, sort of mid 2000s again, but actually at the lower end of the Alpine CD range from that era. So guys, let me now show you all the sexy new Alpine tech which is going into the Diablo. Let's start with the amplifier. Now, this amplifier is part of the Status range. There is only one range above this Alpine Status range. That's the flagship range, and it's called the F1 Status range. So you can imagine this is a pretty high spec product. It's the HDA F60 4-channel amplifier. We're gonna run it in 3-channel mode, just as the previous setup was. It's 4 by 100 watts RMS. So we're gonna have 2 channels running at 100 watts RMS. We're gonna bridge the rear channels. Now the rear channels on this are fairly powerful. And the fact that it comes with a birth certificate gives an indication of the actual true power of this particular amplifier. We're gonna get about 450 watts RMS just out the subwoofer channel. That's a lot of power. Now if you think about it, look at the size of this amp. 25 years on, we got 25% more power for the front channels, and we got 50% more power for the subwoofer channels. It's a nice bit of kit there. Subwoofer, we've got the Alpine shallow mount 10-inch subwoofer, the RSW10D2. It's a dual 2-ohm subwoofer. That's going to be running at 4 ohms. Then we move on to the components. Again, this is part of the Status range, HDZ65C. Look at these sexy Alpine mids. The quality of these is second to none. That's in terms of build and sound quality. We have got some separate 2-way passive crossovers. These will get hidden up, I think, either under the dash or in the center console. And guys, just check out these beautiful tweeters. Now, the links to all the products will be in the description below. We'll talk about money and pricing at the end of this episode. We're going to rip out all the old wiring as well. And in fact, some of it's already here. We're going to use new Audison cabling throughout. That's new power cable, earth cable, RCA cable, speaker cable. We just want to ensure that that old cabling, which is probably a little bit tired, doesn't attract any interference and any noise. We're going to use brand new stuff. I'm going to leave the guys to obviously continue stripping the car down. They're also going to make sure that the subwoofer box that they removed from behind the driver's seat is still solid and there are no air leaks. And we're going to make a new panel for the amplifier, and then I'll be back towards the end of this episode, show you all the products, and we'll have a listening test then. See you guys in a bit. Right, the installation in the Diablo is now complete. Before I do a sound check, let me show you the products that have been installed in the Diablo. So behind the passenger seat, we've managed to repurpose the original trim panel. We've had to make a slightly smaller trim panel because the new Alpine Status amp, as I showed you earlier, is considerably smaller than the Alpine amp that came out. That sits in nicely there. Obviously, fresh new cables have been run for the amplifier, for the subwoofer I'm going to show you, and for the speakers and the tweeters. Now, if you recall, the diamond tweeters on the dash looked very tired. So we've managed to repurpose the dash hole, trim it, clean it up, and fit the new Alpine Status tweeters in the same location. And obviously, in the door panel, we have the new Alpine 6.5-inch Status mid-range speaker. We've added a little bit of sound deadening as well behind the speaker, just to ensure that there's no resonance or any vibration from the inside of the door itself. It is an old classic car. Let's now show you the subwoofer. What we've managed to do is utilize the original sub box that has been in this car probably 20 years. We've added some sound deadening inside the sub box and some sound wadding, and also just strengthened the back of the sub box. It's lasted 15 years. What we've done now will probably last another 15 years and some. You can see the 10-inch Alpine Type R shallow mount subwoofer, which fits perfectly in that box. Now, let's talk source units. So in terms of stereo, most people for a retro unit would go for the Blaupunkt, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's in fact 3 Blaupunkt retro units. We wanted to try and be a little bit more period correct. So back in May, June of 1991, Alpine released this brochure. In the 90s, Alpine owned a Lamborghini Diablo, which was their demo car. So in 1991, there's a selection of radio cassettes here. The top of the range, which most people still consider the daddy of radio cassettes from the 90s, was the Alpine 7618R. One down from that was the 7294R. Still has the iconic 6-button green layout. It's got rewind, forward, and eject for the cassette. It's even got RDS, which obviously is standard feature now, but in the 90s, that was not a standard feature. Typically, in your Diablo, you would have probably had a 7294R or the CD version, but most definitely you would have had a CD changer as well in the front. We're not using a CD changer for this installation. I'll come back to that when we're in the car. Now, here we have a period correct Alpine 7294R, 6-button layout as it is there, radio cassette, and this is what's powering the new tech in the Diablo. Let's pop this in and let's have a listen. Now, Alpine stereo, that's the cage. All we do is push that into place like so, and now it's locked in place. Turn the ignition on, press the power button, and there you have your period correct Alpine radio cassette with the iconic 6-button layout. Now, we're not going to use a cassette to listen to this high-end Alpine audio. We're actually going to use my iPhone. So what we've managed to do is utilize an old Alpine Bluetooth adapter and tweak around with it, play with it, and we can now stream music directly to the adapter, which is connected to the CD shuttle input on the back of the Alpine stereo. Now, this track I have used numerous times before, so I know the quality of music I should expect. Now, there is a bass controller fitted in the vehicle as well, just underneath the dash on the left-hand side. I've turned the bass flat, so this is just now mids and tops. Okay, very sharp, very clear. And to be fair, you'd expect that from these high-end Alpine Status components. Crystal clear, crystal clear. Okay, so now the bass has kicked in, and I've got to say there's a fair amount of depth from those mid-range speakers. There's no vibration coming from the door, no interference. Now let's introduce some bass. Oh, wow. Wow, this is amazing. Guys, that's impressive. We've got the top end clarity from those Alpine tweeters. We got some nice mid-range from the mid-bass speakers, and there's plenty of bass and depth from that 10-inch shallow mount subwoofer. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Now, this is a fairly small cabin, so we don't require loads of speakers and loads of power, and that sound fills the cabin with some really quality audio. Obviously, and I know most of you are thinking this, why do you need sound when you've got a V12 behind you? Well, if you're cruising on the motorway, that can get a bit drony, so it's a perfect time to listen to some quality audio. Now, let's talk money. The Alpine 10-inch shallow mount Type R sub is £499. The speakers, the Alpine Status component kit, that's £799. And the Alpine Status amplifier is £699. Cabling, obviously, you will have to allow for cabling and sound installation on top. In the case of this car, we had to remove all the old cabling out, and obviously that was a little bit more in terms of man hours, because we didn't want any interference or cross interference from old cabling that was in situ. Labor wise, now, again, it depends on the car. We're quite lucky here that the sub box we could repurpose, and the amp panel just needed a bit of reworking. So that saved a lot of money, but roughly you'll be looking somewhere between I'd say 750 to 1,500 pounds. That's an approx cost, because this is a custom bespoke installation. Head unit. Now, back in 1991, that Alpine 7294R was about 450 pounds retail. You can actually buy them now. You can go on eBay and you can buy them. Just make sure it works. You're going to pay about £400 or £500 for that head unit. We've repurposed an Alpine Bluetooth adapter and made that work so we can stream music. There's obviously a cost involved to that. Or alternatively, you can go for a flip out screen. Pioneer do a flip out screen which has got CarPlay. The alternative is the Blaupunkt Bremen unit. Or, now, this car will be on our stand at Goodwood Festival of Speed. Now, when this video goes out, I think Festival of Speed would have finished. So some of you may have seen this car on our stand and obviously seen the installation and so on. But on the stand at Goodwood, we will be showcasing the new Pioneer Retro Stereo. And that's another option that can be used for a classic car, and it'll work in 80s and 90s cars. So it's actually a perfect fit for the Diablo. That Pioneer stereo is to be released in September, October, and it's about £350 from memory. So there are options there. So you don't need to have a sort of 2025 head unit with all sorts of gary lights and so on. You can use something classic and retro. If you did visit our stand at Goodwood and you saw the Diablo, drop a comment down below. Let us know what you thought of our stand and let us know what you thought of the Diablo and the installation. If you didn't and you want to have a look at some of the retro units, by all means pop along to the shop. We've got them on show. Guys, any questions, any comments you have, if you've got a classic car, be it a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a Porsche, Maserati, whatever it is, drop us an email or give us a phone call and we'll quote you accordingly. Thanks for watching. Make sure you smash the like button. Make sure you're a subscriber of the channel. You know, is this the kind of content you guys are after? If so, please let us know. And I'll see you on another episode on CAS TV.